Hey, welcome to the Sit Down. I'm your man, Rod Lovin. With me tonight is, I don't know. I was thinking of a like a sensei name, master of antagonists, being a antagonistic type of person, because you were gnawing at me earlier, Doc, and I think you that's a skill set. But joining me
No,
tonight is
no,
none other than Doc Polite.
no. I just believe in Socratic questioning.
You believe in what?
Socratic questioning. Look it up.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna definitely go look that up, Doc.
So well, it's interesting because me and my wife was talking about this today, and what most people do is they question to get their understanding. They don't question to get understanding. They question to get their understanding or validate what they understand and believe.
Doc, why do you think that is? And Attorney Greg Jackson said something last week on Let's Talk Nation, I think it was, where he talked about the fact that he watches a number of different news networks so that he can get different vantage points. Some people, when you just tune into one station, you already have the expectation of what you want to hear.
Yeah, well, that's confirmation bias. That's what it's called. Confirmation bias means you look for things that validate your worldview or your world point of view, so you can feel included. That's why people do it. They want to be a part of a tribe. It's as simple as that. And Socratic questioning means to exhaust every possible scenario or approach to a problem.
Hey, so Doc, let me ask you this question. And how do you say it again?
Socratic questioning.
Socratic questioning. Okay. Yeah. So does that run along the lines of that individual who, after you tell them the answer to something, and they constantly come back saying, "Why is that? Why is that?"
That's it. So if you say the sky is blue, why is the sky blue?
Well, if I were
no. Why is the sky blue? It's not a trick question.
Well, I'm gonna tell you from my perspective why the sky is blue, and I'm gonna tell you the sky is blue because based on the way I'm seeing it and my orientation with colors, the sky is blue. Now, somebody else might have a different vantage point of what the sky is based on their perception of it, and maybe based on their vision. I don't know.
Well, it's reasons why the sky is blue.
See,
it's several reasons why that question can be answered in numerous ways. Number one, the scientific reason is light refraction off the surface of the earth.
Doc, are people actually getting that in depth about the sky being blue or not?
Number two is that it's identified as blue because that's the social value that we give it.
So if I were to say to you, 1 + 1 equals what?
It could be 4.
See, okay. From a logic perspective, it can be 4?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be whatever social value we give it.
Well, no, let's talk about it. Man, I don't know why I'm letting you take me down this big path. I don't know why I'm letting you take me down this big path. It ain't worth. It ain't worth all that questioning to me.
My wife was watching a show this weekend, and the guy was talking about the fact that we may actually be in a simulation and not a reality. And
we may be in a simulation and not a reality.
Yeah, and we may be, because things are manifested in our reality because we think them. We give value to things. We share values about things.
Well, man, let me share some value right now, man, on something. I want to go ahead and give a plug that August the 16th, and this is going to be at New Covenant Baptist Church. and I'm looking. Oh, it's going to go run from 9 a.m. to I think 9 a.m. to noontime, if I'm not mistaken. But this is going to be a event where they're asking for parents to bring your kids out. There's going to be, and matter of fact, I'm having the honor of running the shoot or don't shoot simulator, which allows individuals to put themselves in the position of a law enforcement officer and get into a simulator and make decisions. Having to make decisions as to whether or not you're going to act or not act in the name of public safety. And so people get an opportunity to get in the simulator and see how they respond. There are also going to be some individuals. Chief Stanley Murray from the chief of police with the town of Eatonville will also be hosting this. Charles Morse, you're familiar with Charles. He's a host. Former Orlando Police Chief Orlando Rolon will be participating from a leadership perspective. But this is an opportunity for the community to come out. Please bring your young people so that there can be a dialogue, a conversation that takes place. And that dialogue and conversation is going to be covering a lot of areas. But the areas it's going to cover is the area of public safety and community engagement. Doc, I didn't hear you say anything about that, that simulator aspect, which I fully expect you to say something about that.
I'm over here chewing my lip.
Well, why is that? I mean, what you think about that?
Because this is how I think. I always question motivations about stuff. I always do. I don't care what's going on. What's the motivation behind it? So what's the motivation behind law enforcement getting out there and showing the public the shooting scenario that they find themselves in?
Well, let me say this. And I'm not speaking for law enforcement. The simulator was gifted to Dr. Randy Nelson, of whom you know as well, who travels the country related to training law enforcement and community stakeholders in community engagement. The significance of the simulator, and again, this is separate and aside. I know law enforcement will be present. I will be running the simulator, but I'm not running it from the perspective of law enforcement. I'll be operating the machine. We'll have law enforcement professionals there, but also those same professionals get to interact with those community stakeholders who a lot of their issues are being respected in the community. But I think at the same time, we need to understand that when law enforcement is out there in the community, when they're doing their job, and I'm speaking purely, Doc, with those who are doing their job and doing it correctly, those are the folk, man, that we want to get home at night. They want us to get home at night. And if you got a problem with one of those law enforcement guys, even if it's somebody who's not doing their job appropriately, there's a way to handle it. You're not going to handle it on the side of the road. I'm going to tell you that right now. You and I both know that.
I get that. But what is the motivation for the simulator?
The motivation for the simulator, Doc, is so that individuals in the community who would not ordinarily find themselves or even understanding the role that law enforcement plays in those scenarios, so that they can put themselves in those individuals' shoes, even albeit through a simulator. That is the role of that, so that they can gain some awareness, so they can gain the degree of knowing. And here's something, Doc, that I would just put out there. I've been through several simulators, and I found myself in very difficult situations when, it's not like, you get in those things, and in the real world is not PlayStation 3. So I think the real impact of it, Doc, is so that the community can put themselves in the shoes of law enforcement to see some of those critical decisions that they have to make. And this is not making an excuse, because they get trained, and life and liberty is at stake out there. So you get to put yourself in their shoes, and I can't even elaborate it beyond that. And at the same time, law enforcement being there, getting to hear the community communicate with them about what their needs are and interacting in their community, I think is valuable both ways.
So how does it push? How does it push the narrative forward about public safety?
Here's how I think. This me. Here's how I think it pushes the narrative forward. When you do forums like that, Doc, it's this thing called a chip. When you're interacting with law enforcement and law enforcement is interacting with the community, they're listening to the community, they're building a relationship with the community, and vice versa. I think what you do then is you're developing a relationship, putting a chip in the bank of community trust, because it's not going to be a matter of if something is going to take place in that community. It's a matter of when something takes place in that community, that you're going to have to use that doggone chip to open up the dialogue so that people can actually hear each other.
So why have we gotten to this? I mean, I don't see the value of the simulator. This is just me, okay? And it's sort of like several years ago, I went on air and I told of a certain law enforcement agency that was trying to team with community churches to teach the public how to protest against law enforcement. And I said, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. How do you teach someone to protest against the very people that they're being subjugated by?
Doc,
and it continues to be. See, to me, Rod, and I always say this because I think that community leadership does not listen to community. They listen to who they think will approach them in the manner they want to be approached in. And problem solving don't work that way. It ain't always nice and neat. And it ain't always a pretty message you need to hear. You need to hear the authentic message. And sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes it is. But many times you're having conversations with the people that can't even affect change. It's like it's like I tell you, pastors mean nothing to me in the social change. Why? Because they don't have a voice with the very people that they saying they can reach. They can't reach them.
Well, when you say that, Doc, and see, I think, and this is just my opinion, I want to go back to something you said first, is you didn't see the value of simulators. I'm going to put a pin in that for a second, but when you talk about pastors, does it have to be a blanket statement basically condemning all pastors, Doc? Or would you say...
No, I'm saying as a model. In our community, you know good and well that we default to the pastor as the basically the ambassador or the sage wisdom in our communities. You
why
see,
do we do that? See, put a pause, put a comma behind that.
Why do we do that? Because it goes all the way back to the civil rights movement that at one point was led by religious leaders. Okay,
Doc, I'm asking you, and you're responding. I'm asking you why do you think that is, and then I want to get the opportunity to tell you why I think it is.
Okay.
So you talk about.
I'm telling you, I think it is because what has happened is our adversaries, I put it in that terms, have decided that those are the people that they can deal with. So they, by de facto, default to going to them to question them as if we're a monolith and we all will follow what pastors say or what this person says, or someone they say is a black leader. White people don't have a white leader. Where's the white leaders? We don't need all of us don't have the same values. We have some shared interests, but we don't have the same values and belief systems a lot of times. But it's a constant push to funnel us into that. So they go to Al Sharpton, they go to Jesse Jackson, they go to Hakeem Jeffries and all of these so-called black leaders to send a message back to us as if we all follow or obey. See that, and that's what I get out of it, and that's why it pisses me off. It's the idea that we should obey a set of people in our community just because they say we should obey them.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We ain't talked about our topic yet.
Because you started this. What you talking about? Hey, for those of you who are tuned in to the sit down, we welcome you to call in, and we're going to ask that you respectfully, if you want to engage in this conversation, we welcome you to join it. The phone number is area code 407-921-6195. Hey, and what we look for is constructive input. If you have some solutions, some sage wisdom as to how we become better and be better, come on, dial on in. We'd love to have you. But Doc, I'm going to respond to why I look at pastoral leadership the way I do. Okay. And mine is totally for a totally different reason. Doc, as we talk about individuals out there that are part of civic groups, Doc, when you have bricks and mortar, and you know this is where the nucleus of a group of people are going to be meeting, that's where you go. You go where you know that there's already an establishment of people who are coming together for a common cause, and a lot of those common cause, if you don't disagree with me on this, those common cause are the welfare of others. I mean, we can talk about the spiritual aspect and things of that nature, but you have a group of people that's congregating in a location, and those pastors, I'm going to say to you, for the most part, when you look at bricks and mortar, some people say, well, if you look at the black community, there's a church on every corner. Okay, so be it. But that house church or that big church or whatever you want to call it, you still have a gathering of people who are interested, in my opinion, of the well-being of the larger mass. That's why I look at those folks.
Now, and I get that. I get what you're saying. But the very folks that those pastors are reaching don't need to be reached. Those are already the people who are in our community who, in many respects, are not causing the problems or deal with many of the ills that impact our community.
And those same people got folk that you're right, that are not at those churches, that they can actually spread out. We all know somebody that can benefit from help. Am I right or wrong?
And that's true, but it don't work that way. It does not work. It's called. You don't understand that there's different cultures within our culture. You understand?
And your culture, how do you reach the ones you're talking about then? I'm curious. I mean,
first of all, you go to them. You don't go to intermediaries. You can't.
So where do you go to them at, Doc?
You go to wherever they are. If you're trying to change their behavior, okay? If you're trying to address their issues, you got to go to them and ask them what their issues are. Don't tell them. You can't go in there and say, hey, you need to start acting like me.
And
maybe they don't want to act like you.
If anybody's going in and having a conversation about you need to act like me, that's the wrong person.
Well, but see, that's many times that's the way that it's approached. I was cross town one time and I saw this in real life, in real time, and this pastor was chased off by that same thing. And you're right. A lot of them don't know how to approach those people. You understand what I'm saying?
So now we were talking about pastors, but there's other avenues that you reach their population.
Yeah, it is. But it don't. But the faulting is saying that many of the community leaders are in fact pastors. We bypass the professionals. That why are we not advocating for counselors and social workers to become our forefront? They have the professional training to actually deal with the social issues that are impacting these people. Why are we not getting them together and saying, create a black social worker, counselor, psychology team. Teams are in there, and those people, if the church want to be a part, host for them, get them in there. Don't get up there and pontificate and postulate like you know what the hell you're talking about, and you don't.
Let me back you up on this again. There is an entity, just as you just mentioned, Association of Black Social Workers and things of that nature, and then you reference the church deferring to them. Well, why not the church, or I'm gonna say, or community-based organizations that are the hub, and you bring those social workers in so that they can be of assistance to this population again.
But again, the churches are not the vehicle for social change, and we've defaulted to that, and it's not a successful model. And you know why? I know, because it hasn't changed anything in the last 60 years.
So
to a significant,
what's the vehicle,
it has
what's
not.
What's the vehicle?
The vehicle right now, it needs to be recreated. We've been doing the same thing for 60 years. And what do they say? When you do the same thing, that's what? A sign of what?
It's a sign of insanity. But here's something that I don't believe that we have been doing to the degree that we should be doing, and that is we got a whole bunch of data everywhere. But Doc, and you know it as well as I do, I don't think we've been benchmarking like we should have so that we can follow the outcomes. I agree. Going back the last 20, 30 years, Doc, the braggadocious part of it has been, oh, I'm serving 100 kids here and there. It's not the volume of service, it's the impact. It's the
and again, many of those organizations that tell you that, Rod, guess what? They can't quantify or qualify that. And so you served 100 kids. How?
And I'm with you 100%.
How did you gave out 100 book bags? 100 packs of pencils?
Hey, or you know what, Doc, if we ever get to a point that we equate from a human services perspective, that we equate a degree of equivalence, you look at tourist development tax dollars and the expectation when those dollars are given to Camper World Stadium or the Center for Performing Arts and these organizations, it's given to those organizations with some specific outcomes in mind, and those outcomes are bringing more individuals to put butts in seats, to look at these performing arts. At the end of the day, it's about outcomes, Doc. And when you look at human services, I think it's more of a narrative-driven. Oh, I served 100 over here, but where's the ROI on the 100 that you served?
Rod, how often do you run into people that say, hey, Rod, I'm thinking about starting a after-school program. Or, hey, Rod, I want to mentor kids. I want to start a mentorship program. How often do you run into that?
You already know the answer to that.
Tell me.
Run into it all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
Now, think about if every one of those people did that, how much of an impact would they make? None. You know why? There are people already with the resources and places. All they got to do is go join them. But we would rather try to start our own to get the shine than anything else. It's a lot of this stuff is postulating, and postulating does not help. Okay. It's like when we moved up here, okay, we didn't go out and try to start a youth outreach mentoring program. We went down to the community center, said, hey, Ken, how you doing? This is who we are. We want to help the community. It's already in place. We don't need to go out and launch that. And it's not an ego thing. It's service. I don't need to have a flyer, and I don't need to have a program with my name on it, or this is how. I took what I have, and literally I have books on how to run different programs. I have the knowledge. and the skill set. That's what I did. We can address what are some of the things in the community, Ken, that need to be addressed. Okay. We got a lot of people that want to learn how to use computers. Okay, Ken, I can teach a computer class 2 days a week for an hour.
And Doc, here's the thing, and I think you're right in that sweet spot. Florida Economic Consortium. The word consortium, bringing entities together. I think we get more synergy, Doc, when you talk about individuals that have a heart for something. And a good example is what you just mentioned. Folk that say, hey, I want to start a mentoring program or something to that extent. Join a consortium so that you can understand all that's involved beyond what you imagine it should or could be. But join the consortium, and it's almost like, Doc, when you and I were starting out professionally, I was going to say 100 years ago, but I ain't going to do that to us. But when I hear you talk about your time in the military, when I hear you talk about your profession, Doc, you sat back when you started out and you observed. You learned before you start making your moves. Well, I think the same thing has to take place in whatever you do. I mean, folk who jump in there and they just starting out and they're going to these forums, and what's that old saying, Doc? God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yep.
These ears need to be listening more than what's coming out of the
mouth moving.
Especially
yeah.
when you're trying to learn.
Yeah. And that is like, people don't understand how powerful keeping this close is. See, a lot of times you miss our stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I don't care what situation I'm in, if it's new to me or I hear wisdom being espoused and given out, I'm going to stop talking and listen. I'm more interested in gathering. See, I don't need to be, a lot of people have this need for validation. I don't need to be validation. I do Rod, you know me. I do stuff because I like doing it. It's not that I'm trying to shine or want the notoriety. Okay? Because trust me, when you are valuable to people, they remember that. I had someone, and I was telling my wife about this today, and this guy called me. He said, I just wanted to call you and thank you. He said, you have been so impactful to my life. You just don't know. He said, I watch you and your consistency and how you deal with stuff. And I've always admired that about you. You're always consistent. You're always the same person. You don't give fluff.
And so, Doc, what we're talking about, and I'm going to try to see if I can use this segue. We've actually talked about a changing of the times.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about changing of the times, and we want to be useful and helpful in any way that we can. But you and I, we got in this conversation about how times not are changing, but continue to change when we look at community. The first example, man, I'm gonna just go down this list, man, and I'd like you to engage on this if you would.
Okay.
1960s, when we looked at the seriousness of young people getting engaged in, let's just call it delinquency or something. But the title I think you gave it was rebellion and petty crime. So
this kind of in the 1950s, one of the things
60s.
I know, but I'm just going to give you a precursor. In the 1950s, you had a lot of James Dean and Bad Boys kind of movies, right? And that's where the nexus of the street kid kind of came forward, and it kind of evolved. In the 60s, it involved in the petty crime, vandalism, fighting. That's when gangs started. Rumbles, underage drinking, smoking, skipping school, truancy. Okay? These were a manifest, and it's identifiable in the 60s because it increased almost tenfold, where it was noticeable. You had kids like they used to say shoot hooky, right? That would play, but in each school, you probably had 5 all year that had an engaging pattern of consistently doing
so
that.
Doc, we were more impacted
Right.
by what we
So
saw.
by the 60s, it was groups of kids skipping school, having parties, going out stealing, drinking, and stuff. So we started to see the delinquency rise, especially in urban cities and towns. Okay. And then we roll on to and by the way, for all the listeners, again, give them the number there, Rod. We got a few numbers.
Join this conversation. The phone number is area code 407-921-6195. And I want to go ahead and warn you in advance, as Doc and I rattle off these eras of rebellion. When you come and join this line, you're going to probably give way to, you're going to date yourself. So join this conversation. But yeah, Doc, 1960s, a little petty crimes.
Yeah.
1970s, what were you looking at then?
You're looking at now, we got the weed, the LSD, heroin. Wow, they came out of the late 60s. Remember, everybody started wanting to be Superfly?
Oh, yeah.
I remember when Superfly came out. And all of a sudden, guess what? You had jokers walk around with their Superfly high heels, bell-bottom pads, polyester shirts, and everybody in the hood was Superfly. They had the relaxer and all of that. And everybody wanted to sell weed or heroin. I used to hear people say, heroin. You got to get that heroin, that boy, that girl. And I'm like, what is it? When I was a kid, I didn't know what that stuff was.
But Doc, then what took place in the 80s?
80s, crack and weaponization. Now you got the boys saying, hey, I can stand on my block and I ain't got to break in the stores no more and boost stuff. I could just sell this rock and I can just rob this drug dealer. So guess what? Now you had a arms race in the hood. The Uzis, the MAC-10s, remember all them guns?
Yeah.
The AKs, and all of that became the signature of the 80s. You weren't anybody in the game if you didn't have an army and a crew and had some Uzis or something like that. Okay,
Hey, Doc, but I see something. In the 80s, is it true that murder spiked?
Yeah. So now you got armed youth out there killing each other. Think about this. This was the typical model for a drug organization. You would have the juveniles out on the corner, made sure they was under 18 or 16. You know why? Can't go to jail.
Hey, but Doc, you hit it right on the head. But this was also an era where you started seeing a lot of under 18-year-olds become direct foul because of the level of violence.
Right. But you got a lot of direct fouls, but you also had a overburden of the juvenile system. Remember how it blew up? It was just after a while, you just had all these kids. You're like, it went from like 15 to.
You're right. Doc, for the benefit of our audience, when people hear us talk about direct files, go ahead and let them know what that.
A direct file means that they have been upgraded to an adult charge. They're no longer charged at a juvenile level, and it's usually because the seriousness or the heinousness of the crime is so bad that there's no way it can be adjudicated within the juvenile system. The juvenile system is more about reform and saving a kid. You don't save murderers.
And you had a max when you were charged as a juvenile in terms of, and I'm not sure, Doc, but I thought it was up to 21 years old. So
it's 21.
Yeah, if you knew that, committing the crime back during that time, that the worst you were going to get is being incarcerated up to 21 years old. I mean, that's why going back to your point, Doc, you had youngins out there committing these crimes because they know the penalty, wasn't going to be the same.
Possession at 18 is about 5 years. Possession at under that age usually only went to 18. If it was serious, it went to 21. So
Doc, let's push along. 1990s. What did you see in the 1990s?
Now you saw the beginning of school shootings. Now, and this was, it's unique because prior to this, in the 60s and 70s, the gang and youth violence was primarily focused on the kids in urban areas, so to speak, the urban population group. Now,
Doc, is this the era where the I guess the definition of super predator came out of?
Yeah. This is where who was that called them super predators? Is it Clinton?
No, it was Biden.
Biden. Yeah, Joe Biden came up with the term super predators.
Hey, Doc, everybody forgot it when he ran for president. Go ahead.
Yeah. But so what we saw was the increase in gang solidarity and gang wars. Now you saw gangs expanding. That was a byproduct also of the 80s, because they began to fight for territory outside of their cities. Now you have Bloods and Crips and Hoovers and all these people coming in. El Salvadorian gangs started coming here. Mexican gangs. You had the Jamaican posses. Remember them? All this stuff, and you know, they were fighting for turf and all of this stuff. Miami became basically a shooting gallery for a lot of the 90s. You know, it was nothing to turn on the news and see somebody killed on 75 or going through Volusia County. Somebody got caught with 5 kilos of cocaine and all of this stuff. That was a weekly occurrence. Then you got school-based violence, and that was out of that's where you had mostly white kids, usually in small towns or rural areas, that begin to act in an antisocial ways with guns.
Doc, do you remember the era? Man, I can't remember what year, but the era where the Florida legislature just actually started putting police officers in schools. I mean, it made it mandated that your schools had.
It was in the 90s.
Okay.
In the early parts of the 90s, you begin to have what's called school resource officers. SROs, and that was in response to the delinquency and that was increasing in the student bodies in these schools. And it went all the way down to elementary, where you know you got these little corner boards, as they call them, and those corner boards out there making $600,000-$700,000 a week, standing on the corner telling, you know, say one time 50, you know, being a lookout or transporting the re-up around the corner to the corner boy.
Doc, you had me ask a question that I was really curious about. And in Florida, school resource officers program started in individual communities before becoming widespread across the state. Miami-Dade Police Department started the first program in Florida during the 1969-1970s. Orlando Police Department, an area that you're more than familiar with, growing up in Orlando, launched its pilot program in 1972. And then you looked at expansions from 1997. So you got the era of the 90s, correct? 1997, 62 out of 60.
I graduated in 80. Rod, I cannot ever remember a police officer at Evans. I cannot remember one at Jones or Edgewater. I just can't.
But by 1997, 62 out of 67 Florida school districts had SRO programs, and then the state requirement following the 2018 shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, Florida mandated that all public schools have at least one armed school safe school officer in a SRO mode. So you're right. You're right.
So they may have had them, and I'm not saying that they didn't. Maybe it was somebody that was assigned that designation, and they kind of rotated between. But I mean, I'm talking about a presence on campus all day, every day.
What Miami-Dade and Orlando Police Department were two of the leaders in the state of Florida. One started in 1970 and another one started in 1972.
Now I remember we had PAL, Police
Athletic League.
Yeah, they had that, and that was a good program, and a lot. But that was still a time where we had a rapport with officers.
But Doc, on that note, pause. So it was a time when you had rapport with officers, because I grew up at the time when, remember, Officer Friendly? So you grew up in these eras where you had pals and Officer Friendly, and then those initiatives go away, completely away. Doc, when those initiatives go away, think about the marketing of those initiatives when really there was no marketing of it. You knew a PAL existed in your community, or you knew an Officer Friendly program existed in your community. They were interactive with the community, and that was the marketing. It was engagement. But then when it went away, Doc, I think it did itself a disservice, because now you don't have that vehicle to attract kids to look at what law enforcement looks like.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that people don't talk about is the change in law enforcement's focus. I think more than anything else, that has been a detriment to communities and to law enforcement.
Doc, what do you think the change in focus has been?
Well, the changes in focus was in true safety. See, the officers, when I was a kid, they were about safe. It wasn't no fighting, no shooting, and things like that. They didn't bother us. We didn't disrespect them. Say, hey, officer, how you doing today? They ride through sometimes, not an overwhelming presence, and we were cool with that. We say, hey, what's?
Doc, I still say, and you brought it up first, I agree with you on PAL. I mean, I agree with you 100%. When those type of initiatives were out there, Doc, they did their own best marketing because they were out there in the community working with kids. I think when we sit and Doc, I'm gonna keep us on track, man. So you look at your clock, but Doc, remember midnight basketball?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And they used to have midnight basketball over at the Davis Armory and at the center over there on Bruton, across from St. Mark. Those used to be in I'm trying to think it was one other place.
It was all over the state. It was all over the state.
But those are the two primary ones I knew, and it was cool because you could even go there and they'd have like box lunches and stuff for kids that and things like that. But I wanted to point out that when police got the mandate to get out their car and start patting us down and searching us without provocation, that's where everything turned.
Now, here's what I'm gonna say. When your cops initiatives started declining, and for most people who don't know what COP stood for, that was the community-oriented policing. That's when police officers, and you still have some segments of it that's still in here today. It's not what you might call a funded mandate, and it depends on the leadership of law enforcement agencies that are determined whether or not it still exists in any form or fashion.
Well, they went from a order organization to a hunting organization.
Everybody loved the fact, and I done got a few texts. They said they just love when this vinegar and oil come together. But Doc, if you would, man, give me 30 seconds, man. We're about to go ahead and tell people we'll see them next week. What's your thoughts, man, on this conversation tonight? Well,
we got more to cover because it really opens up in the 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. We are seeing a very different thing. I just want to play this clip right quick. Let me see if it'll come up right.
What perplexes me the most about the video that I'm stitching is the number of motherfuckers that got together and decided that this shit was a good idea. If you watch the video, there has to be
I'm sorry.
adult, correct? Juvenile and juvenile, correct? All right. You two are under 18 and you're 18. You're all going to be booked with first-degree premeditated murder. You two will go to the juvenile assessment center. You go.
These two teenagers, LaShawn Lamb and LaRon Boyd, decided that they wanted to be tough guys. They wanted to be street niggas. They wanted to be jackers, robbers, along with their supposedly big homie, Denarius McGlaw. Now,
take him back. Take him out. Take him out.
4 teenagers laughed and danced in court after brutally murdering a 74-year-old grandmother. Linda Fricky had just left Walmart with a birthday cake for her 5-year-old granddaughter when the teens pepper sprayed her, dragged her from her car, and sped off, not realizing she was still strapped in by her seatbelt. She was dragged for over a block, her arm crushed, and died in agony.
Rod,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff we're talking about now.
And so, Doc, on that note, and I don't know any other way to just kind of address this very quickly, is that's why I truly believe, man, we have to make sure that everybody understands there's consequences to your action, particularly young people now. And so,
Yeah.
I
And
think,
and Rod, that's why we got to approach different. What worked for the 60s, that's why I was playing advocate, so to speak, antagonistic advocate at the beginning, because our playbook says 1960 and our reality says the 2020s.
but for those of you who joined us for the sit down, this is Doc Polite, Rod Love, just breaking it down. And again, yeah, this is our perspective and our opinion. That's why we open it up to the audience for you to tell us what your thoughts are. But Doc, I do believe you got a couple of pillars there, and I'll be real quick. You got prevention, you got intervention, you have prosecution and enforcement. I believe there is a space and place for all 4 of those pillars,
yes,
that we have to have to maintain.
They're all interconnected. They're all interconnected. Yeah.
Hey, y'all join us next week on the sit down. Doc Polite and myself, Sister Wynn might be here next week, so that we can continue this conversation, because at the end of the day, we all we got. We'll see you next week on the sit down.